Good morning, Birdsboro. We're glad to have you in church this morning. We've got a few announcements that we want to bring to your attention. First of all, kids, we'll dismiss you after the offering and the prayer time this morning. You get yours truly down there with you this morning. So if anybody wants to come chaperone me, you're more than welcome. We're going to have fun down there together, kids. So after prayer. This Wednesday at 6:30, we've got a zone missions event going on here. We've got the Woodley family that's going to be joining us and sharing a little bit about their ministry. And we're hoping that you'll come on out for that. I'm told that it's going to be just kind of more of a casual, laid-back type of atmosphere. We're going to have some fun, maybe like a little game show type thing going on. And so it sounds like a lot of fun. If you guys can come on out, support the Woodleys, hear what's going on, and hear what God's doing through them. We'd love to have you here for that. On Sunday, May 21st, we're going to have a ministry fair. As you're coming in for the service that morning and as you leave, come out, get to hear a little bit about what God's doing in the different ministry areas in our church and how you can get involved. And so we're looking forward to that. I know leaders, Pastor Scott sent an email out to your teams this past week just to kind of give some thought to what you're going to be doing. So I'm going to say if you have any questions about that, contact Pastor Scott, maybe see Dave, and one of them can kind of help kind of point you in the direction there. And if you need some help getting some stuff together, I'm sure Karen, Pastor Macy, we can pull this together and help you guys out because we love our people to know what's going on and help them get involved. If you've ever thought about getting baptized, this would be a great time to reach out to Pastor Macy or Pastor Scott, let them know, and we'll put some plans together for a baptismal service this year. And so please keep that in mind. And if you have any questions about what baptism is, or what it means, I'm sure either one of them would be willing to have that conversation with you as well. Thank you for giving faithfully. A little bit later in our service, you'll have the opportunity to give, whether it's in the offering plates as the ushers come down. There's an offering box in the back that you can drop in. And for those of you that are joining us online, you have the opportunity to click on that link and do that as well. We're going to continue to encourage you to get involved in a small group, whether that's on a Sunday morning, a Sunday night, throughout the week, whether it's men's or women's group, teenagers, kids. There's opportunities for everybody to get involved, all age groups, and including our young adults. And so different opportunities to get involved and some different things that are coming up. Youth, you guys are going to be back tonight at 6, and your next event coming up is on May 20th. You're going hiking at the Pinnacle. I'm sure that would be another one. Adults, if you would like to participate and help, maybe see Pastor Macy. She could use some help there. The last time I went, they had to carry me back down off of the mountain, so we could use someone else that's in better shape than me. But continue to pray for those that are going to be going off to NYC. There was a slide that was up there this morning. If you would like to give to help offset some of those costs, I'm sure those kids and those parents would appreciate that. Pastor Macy will talk a little bit about that next week. All right, and we're going to be doing that, but pray. Continue to pray. This Saturday, they've got an informational meeting that they're going to be at, so they're going to get a little bit more instructions on how to prepare and plan for that trip. That's a big trip. Some of them, it's the first time they're getting on a plane and all that kind of stuff. This is a big deal, and they're going to be gathered with thousands of other teenagers from around the country. It's just really an exciting and can be a very life-changing event, and so continue to pray for them. And we are coming into camping season, so make sure parents, teens, kids, whatever, get those applications in so that you don't miss out on those deadlines. Pastor Macy and Karen can help you guys get that stuff filled out. We're running out of time to sign up for volunteering for Mission Trip Birdsboro. So I know we're only another week or two away. They're going to start closing that up so that they can make their final decisions. So if you're thinking about it, please don't miss out on that opportunity to help serve. Those applications are available. If you reach out to Karen in the office, she'll point you in the right direction there. There's some links that we provide online as well, but we'd love to have some good representation from our church. That's going to be later on in July. So the number of volunteers dictates how many projects they can take on and how many things that they can do for our community. And so it's really important that we get that help and get those applications turned in. And finally, Vacation Bible School. It's coming up. We want to thank Ms. Karen for helping us kind of kicking us off last week with some of those instructions, volunteers. It's not too late to sign up, so we hope that you would be willing to do that. We're going to do something that we used to do many, many years ago. We're going to try to bring it back and see if it has an impact, but we're going to participate this year in the Birdsboro Memorial Day Parade, and so we could use your help with that. We could use some people to help walk. If some kids want to sit in the train and push Sherry down the street, that would be great. We're going to need a bigger tractor. We're taking donations for candy, so if you'd like to donate some candy, we're going to hand that out, and we're going to hand out some postcards for our kids, and we're going to have fun. We're going to have a little bit of fun with that, so we're going to use our BNC Train Express and promote that Bible school program. If you're glad to be in church this morning, especially Sherry, say amen. Let's worship together.
Good morning. If you will stand, we will. The hand that once was crowned with thorns is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet.
right, y'all can be seated. If we have not met, I'm Pastor Macy, and I'm the youth pastor here, and I'm just honored to be in the house of the Lord with you all this morning. If you could go ahead and just pray with me, that would be awesome. Oh, and I'm actually going to ask the ushers before we pray to come and make their way up here, and then during the bumper video, they will receive tithes and offerings. So thank you guys very much. Hi, God. Lord, you are so good. And Lord, sometimes I think we forget how good you really are, and we forget how holy you really are. I think sometimes we forget that our little human brains can't even fully comprehend you, but Lord, with every moment that we can, with every moment that we can try to understand you and your goodness and your holiness, Lord, that is worship. And Lord, in every moment that we open our hearts to you, and every moment that we do our best to just let go of who we are in acceptance of who you are, Lord, that is worship. And so I pray, Lord, that in this moment, as we prepare our hearts, as the worship team has continued to prepare our hearts through worship, through music, that our hearts are opened and prepared to receive your message, receive your word through Pastor Scott and the anointed ministry that you have over his life, Lord. I pray that you search us, that you know us, and that you try us through today, through this moment. As we are gathered here together in your house, I pray that we walk out of here less us and more like you. Because, Lord, that is our goal. We serve a good and holy God, and we continue to pursue holiness, Lord. And we want, the more of you that we have, the more that we know we're doing the right thing, Lord. And so I pray that we continue to seek you as you continue to search us, know us, and try us, Lord. You are so good, and we are so humbled and honored to be in your presence and in the presence of each other in this moment. Lord, that is a gift, and we are grateful for it. So continue to use us, continue to speak to us, continue to move. We're listening. So you may pray, amen.
Good morning. Hey, good day to you as well. Everybody doing all right today? Some days you feel like it's just a little bit starting, right? Do you guys get those days too when it just kind of like didn't quite get going like you thought it was going to, right? And then sometimes it's those days that I think maybe God has more in store for us than we thought we were going to experience that day. Like we had this expectation, I think, but then sometimes I think the devil wants to waylay us and get us frustrated and run it behind and just go, whatever, it's not today, you know. And I think when we push through and we kind of remain faithful and say, I'm going to do it anyway, I think we really benefit. And I think God does some great things with us in those moments. So that has nothing to do with anything. I just kind of had that thought as I was kind of through this morning. But I feel like I do need to apologize to Sherry this morning. I'm not usually on Sherry's side, but in this instance, I feel like I probably need to be. We'll try and get Kim to have a better reign on Frank in the future. I don't know. She's not here. That's the only reason I can figure that he is just running wild. Either way, I am grateful that you guys are here. Despite whatever's happened, I'm grateful that you guys are here for this, what is the final week of this unknown series, this idea of this, that you are unknown, cross through, that you are known. And so what we've been kind of doing and kind of focusing on through the 4 weeks of this series, the last week today, 4 weeks of this series, is kind of jumping off from the statements that Jesus made about himself. Because he made these incredible statements about these I am statements about himself. Because he was absolutely clear about who he was, and he was absolutely clear about what his purpose was, what it was that he was supposed to do. Now, we tend to be not so clear about things. We tend to get swayed and kind of leaned into or kind of told who we are or just kind of fall into place about who we are going to be in so many times. But a lot of life, we do know who we are. We know how we operate. We know the roles that we have in society. We know the roles that we play in our families. And we talk about those things all the time. We do have an idea of who it is we are. We have an idea of who it is that we are. When we meet people for the first time, we typically ask the same type of questions. Now, in general, this is not always, it's not 100%, but in general, men usually ask questions like, well, what do you do? That's kind of where we kind of fall into. And then women typically, not always, but typically will kind of ask questions like, well, tell me a little bit about your family. That's kind of how we get to know each other. That's what we're doing with all of those questions. And even if you're an introvert, which some of you are, I won't ask you to raise your hands because that would completely go against everything that you believe in as an introvert. But even if you're an introvert, you somewhat like that process of kind of getting to know someone, kind of sharing information, because we like to talk about ourselves. We take pride in the things that we do. We're proud of the accomplishments or the things that we've done in life. We like to tell others about what our kids and what our spouses are doing, how well they're doing in school, or how well they're doing in sports, or what else it happens to be. We like to talk about those things. When it comes down to it, we like knowing about other people, and we really like being known. We like people to know who we are, to know that we exist, to know that we have a place in the world, up to a point, right? Because there's some things that we do not tell other people about. No matter how long you've known them, there are just some things you do not tell other people about. Now, some of that is because it's shameful and you don't want to, you're going to keep it in, you don't want to share it, you don't want people to know it. But some of it is just general, everyday stuff. There is no one that you decompress with, that you debrief at the end of the day and tell them everything you thought and did throughout the day. It's not bad stuff. You just don't need to tell them that when I was getting ready to turn left, I began to have this weird thought about getting a new dog. And so for the next 3 blocks, I kind of talked about getting a new dog, or whatever the thoughts happen to be. We have all of these thoughts that go through our heads all day long. We don't always share all of this with other people. So in some ways, our lives are like theater productions. There's what happens on the stage, and then there's what happens behind the scenes. There's the stuff that we push out into the spotlight so that everybody can see, so that they can celebrate with us everything that's going on. And then there's things that we keep in the dark. There's things that we keep behind the curtains, things that we keep kind of underneath the stage, some things that we keep out of the spotlight. They go on behind the scenes. And when we do this, and we all do that, we all have those things that we kind of keep back. We kind of hold back keep our cards to our chest. We kind of hold back. We all do those things. We find that what ultimately happens is that we end up not being honest with people. Because we don't just hide the small things, we kind of, again, hide the big things. We hide the things that we should be talking about, things that should get out there. And so we find that we're just not honest with people as much as we should be. Some of it is done out of necessity. Not everyone needs to know everything about your life. My grandmother used to say, you don't have to say everything you know, something like that, Just because you know it doesn't mean you don't have to share it. There are some things that you limit. Who knows this? Who can handle this level of information, and who can't? Some things we hold back. But some of us do it because we don't want to be transparent. We don't want other people to really know who we are. We don't want other people to really know the things we struggle with. We don't want people to really know the sin that we keep falling back into. We don't want people to really know the shame that we experience and that we feel and that we carry with us day in and day out. And this works with people. You can keep people completely in the dark. How often have you heard, I had no idea? Out of left field. Never saw this coming. Like, we hear that all the time. We never knew that those things were going to happen. That works with people. You can keep them kind of at a distance, not knowing stuff. But it does not work with God. As much as we try, we cannot keep him out of our lives. It is impossible to keep him in the dark. It is impossible to be like, well, he just doesn't know about this thing, and I'm not going to tell him. It is impossible to keep things from him. And that's really the gist of this whole series, that God knows who we truly are. God knows who you truly are, who you really are. All the stuff that's deep down, all the stuff that's underneath, all the stuff that you hide, all the stuff you don't want anybody to know, all the stuff you do want everybody to know. He knows absolutely all of those things and who it is that you really are. And that's what we learned specifically the past 2 weeks in the lives of Gideon and Joseph, centered around the ideas of when God calls you, he'll give you everything you need to do everything that he wants you to do. That was the kind of week 2. When God calls you, he'll give you everything you need to do everything he wants you to do. And then last week, God will use every one of our experiences, especially our failures and our weaknesses and our disappointments, to bring about his glory. Remember, Joseph says, but God sent me here. And I'm not going to recap the whole series. Go back and watch the last couple of weeks on 2 times speed. You'll be done in like 40 minutes, all 2 weeks if you want to. But here's the I am statements that we're supposed to make about ourselves. In addition to all of the other I am statements that you already make about yourselves, I am a brother, I am a sister, I am a husband, I am a wife, I am a child, I'm an employee, I am a whatever. Whatever other I am statements that you make about yourself, even the bad ones, whatever I am statements you make about yourself, this is what you're also supposed to say. These are the I am statements we also learn to make. That I am not a museum piece. I'm not supposed to be just revered and adored and just kind of held up on a pedestal or mounted on a wall for everybody to look at and go, what a great believer they are. It's not how we're supposed to exist. I am God's piece of work, and I am created to do his work. And I am mighty, and I am never alone, and I am the clay. And those are the kind of the statements. Now, this is in no way exhaustive about everything that you are supposed to be. It's not when you check. Nailed it, perfect Christian. That's not how that works. This is just a starting point. This kind of gives us an idea. If you can settle in on these things, that this is who you are, then you'll be well on your way to becoming the righteous and holy person that God calls us to be. So we do want to make sure we check off these things in our lives. So to wrap the series up today, we're going to take a quick look back to week 1 when we looked at Psalm 139. And it's a great psalm in general. It is not very long. You could read the whole thing. It would not take you very long to read it. But it absolutely, I think, parallels a New Testament account that we're going to get into in just a few minutes. But one of the verses we looked at from Psalm 139 was verse 16. It's this one. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. Your God, this is David talking to God. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet there was none of them. Your eyes saw my unformed substance. In your book were written, every one of them, the days that were formed for me, when as yet none of them had occurred. So we begin with this idea that God knew us, that God from the beginning has known our days, known where we're going to be, what we're going to do, long before we ever lived one of them. Way back when at the beginning of creation. And in the beginning, he had an idea about you being here on May 7th, 2023. Way back then, he knew this is where I'm going to meet with them. This is where I got an appointment scheduled to meet with them this day. He knew that back then. When he's putting stars in skies and moving water around and bringing land up and creating creatures, he goes, oh yeah, I'm going to meet with them in 6,000 years, in 11 months, 13 days, whatever it happens. I don't know. I don't know the exact age. But he knew all of those things at that point. When we were still unformed, when we were in this imperfect and unfinished state, that he knew even then who we were going to be, where we were going to go, and everything about us that there is to know. Simply put, God has always known you. He has always known you. When no one else did. When you didn't know yourself, he has always known you. And so when so he knows us when we're at our lowest, at our most insecure points. He knows us when we're in wine presses trying to thresh wheat. He knows us when we don't think very highly of ourselves, which we do frequently, right? Maybe even every day. We look in a mirror and wish something was different, and we think pretty poorly of ourselves. He knows us when we're in the pits of despair. He knows us when we're forgotten in dungeons, whether literally or figuratively. He knows every situation that we're going to face, and he knows how it's supposed to turn out, how it will turn out if we'll just keep focused on him and not turn into ourselves. God sees it all, and he knows everything that there is to know about us. And there's a New Testament story that I think really kind of opens this up. It's the story of Jesus having this interaction with another person, and I think it drives this point home that God knows us, absolutely. And it's a story you're probably familiar with. It is, I think, one of the most diverse accounts in all of the Gospels. It is in the Gospel of John, chapter 4. And we're not going to read the entirety of the chapter. We're going to just drop in here and there a couple of verses. But I would encourage you to read it this week. John chapter 4, it's the story of the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman at the well with Jesus. And so in it, we learn about Jesus and his love for people. In it, we learn about how people come to faith in him. In it, we learn how we can reach other people for Christ. We learn about the simplicity and the complexity of the good news of Jesus Christ. And all of those are great messages. We could spend the rest of the day talking about John chapter 4. And when I say rest of the day, I don't mean just the 25 minutes that I got left I'm trying to fit in. I mean until midnight. We could spend the rest of the day talking about everything that's in this chapter. And if you really want to do that, you want to do that. Let me tell you, you do. You want to talk about the Bible. I almost stepped out here because I like to step out when I'm off notes, but I'm off notes. You really want to do that. We say it all the time, but this is why it is so important that we get into a small group. Every single small group can tell you how great their Bible studies are. And I can only speak to you about how good the ones that I lead are. Our board meetings are incredible. They have to be the best board meetings that any church has ever had. And I've been at board meetings, not just from here, and some of them are miserable. They do not go well. But this one is always good. We have our disagreements. We have our discussions. We have our things that we don't agree on. But when we focus and we center around whatever we're talking about as a body of believers, we spend time not just working about the business of the church, but going, how can we grow as individuals? How can we come to know Christ better? How can we lead and sharpen each other? How can I and all of us be made more righteous and holy? And when we have our discussions, even in our small group, and Wednesday night small group, it's really, really good when we talk about the Bible. We just go kind of verse by verse, idea for idea, and we just talk about things that strike our heads. Stick in our minds, whatever, you get the idea. We just kind of talk about the things that kind of hit us. Sounds important to us. And what happens is we learn, and we grow, and we benefit from spending time in the Word. So I would encourage you, read John chapter 4 this week. If you want to, find a group together and say, hey, you know what, just for this week, we're going to meet and we're going to discuss John chapter 4 together. And just meet and do it. I don't have to be there. I will be if you want me to be, but I don't have to be there. You don't have to have a pastor there. I believe in every single one of you that you could read John chapter 4 and share what God's sharing with you in John chapter 4. I think all of you could. I would encourage you to do that. Read it by yourself or read it together as a group. But John chapter 4, really, really great, but we're not going to talk about any of those things. There's a different aspect of John chapter 4 that I think that we're going to lean into that I think gives us some insight into this idea of being known. On the surface, it seems to be just about a woman who has this encounter with Jesus who would be incredibly embarrassed because he knows these intimate details of her life. But ultimately what it is she walks away changed in incredible ways that she could not have imagined when she started her day. Whatever frustrations were facing her when she started that day, they were all gone by the time she meets Jesus at the well at about the 6th hour. By the time, and so this is what's going on in the passage. By the time Jesus begins his public ministry, the region of Samaria had adopted this pseudo-formal religion. This is kind of this woman where she lives, where she comes from, her mindset. This pseudo-form of religion where they had kind of paired and coupled together traditions and practices of Yahweh worship, of God worship, with traditions and practices of idolatry. So they kind of meshed together what they wanted to believe, right? We can get that. We live in this world too. Let's smorgasbord. Let's shady maple our beliefs together. I want a little bit of this and a little bit of this, and I don't like that. I'm not going to have any of that in my set of beliefs. Like we like to put all that stuff together. And so because of this, because they kind of formed this thing, and for other reasons, there is this really high level of animosity between the Jews and the Samaritans. They hated each other. They despised each other. They did not want to be around each other. It's why Jesus' story about the Good Samaritan is so pointed. It would have been so offensive to them. And so what happens is that most of the Jewish people, they wouldn't even travel through this region. They would go around this area of Samaria where they had to get. If they were here and had to get here, Samaria's here, they would go, rather than go all the way through it. Around, rather than go through. And so that's the idea, that's what's going on when we get to John chapter 4, verses 4 through 6. And it says, and he, Jesus, had to pass through Samaria. Jesus had to pass through Samaria. Everybody else goes here. Jesus had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well, and it was about the 6th hour. And so when John begins this account of what happened and mentions that Jesus had to pass through Samaria, we immediately know he didn't really have to pass through Samaria. There were other ways to get there. In fact, the other longer way was the way that everybody went. No one went the way that Jesus is going. Everybody went, no one relative. No one went the way that Jesus is going. Everyone went the other way. So we have to wonder what John means when he adds this in there. Why did Jesus have to go through that way? And it's an interesting word. The word is actually pronounced die. The word for had. It's actually pronounced die. It's not spelled like that. It's lots of little umlauts or whatever else. I don't know. But the word is actually die, for the word had. And it gives us this meaning of it is necessary or inevitable or certain to happen or unavoidable or a duty or what's proper. Like that's the word that he uses there. And so what I think John is getting at when he's telling what Jesus is doing here, that Jesus had to go through here, what's important for us to get is that Jesus had to pass through Samaria because he had an appointment to keep. There was a reason he needed to be at that point at that specific time. He knew that there would be a woman at the well who needed living water. He knew when and where she would be. And so the long route wasn't going to do. He had to go to where she was. It was inevitable. You see, if he knows our days before we've ever lived even one of them, then he knows when you're going to be somewhere. He knows where and when you're going to be. Again, May 7th, 2023, knew you were going to be here. May 7th, 2023, watching online, knew you were going to be here. May 7th, 2023, you're watching it 3 days later. He knew you'd be doing it 3 days later. It's not some weird magician thing. It's an omniscient God who knows us intimately and deeply. And so if God wants to meet us wherever we are in our lives, when God wants to meet us everywhere in our lives, he will. Being known by God is inevitable. That's what I think John is getting at here by the usage of that word. Being known by God is inevitable. Now, at one point, later on, way down the line, who knows, somewhere down the line, there's a part where we get separated, rights and lefts, and Jesus is going to go, depart from me, I knew you not, right? We know that passage. And so he knows you well enough to know you're not in his flock. So there comes a point that we all get known. Like we can kick that can down the curb for a while, but you cannot push that off forever. There is a point, and it's too late by then, where he'll know you're not in my flock. You're not one of the people who belongs to me. So over and done with now. See ya. Bye. Harsh, but that's unfortunately how it is. So being known by God is inevitable. We want to deal with it long before we get to that point. Like deal with it today. That's what he's doing with the woman at the well. The idea is perfectly echoed by David back in Psalm 39, that meeting with God is inevitable. He is everywhere we go. We're not going to flip-flop back and forth, but in verse 7 it says this, where shall I go from your spirit? Where shall I flee from your presence? And then David kind of goes on to write about all the places we can go. Not all the places, but he lists the places we can go. And then he kind of says, when I get there, you're already there. I thought I was going to be there by myself. I thought I was getting away from everything going on, just like the woman does here. I thought I was away from everybody. No one's going to bother me, but you were already there. This is the literal picture of what David is talking about in Psalm 139. And sure, there are very specific places that we all go, and he is involved in those nooks and crannies in all of those places. But I think David is really also getting at these metaphorical places that we find ourselves. He mentions heaven and Sheol. In other words, he's referring to the heights of heaven and the depths of the grave. The heights of happiness and the depths of suffering. You ever experienced those things? Probably within a minute, right? Best day ever? Oh, man. Well, how could it go so wrong so quickly? We have those things, they usually come hand in hand, one right after the other. But in both places is what David is saying is God is present in both of those places, in the heights and the depths, in the happiness and the suffering, he's in both places. So is it any wonder that God would be here at a random well, the 6th hour, right when this woman would be there and be receptive to what it was Jesus was going to say to her? But that's the way that divine appointments work. That's the way that he schedules and works in our lives. Just when we least expect it, he surprises us and steps into our lives. My guess is that nearly everyone today has had an experience like that. Because you're in church, you probably had an experience like that, where God broke into your life in an unexpected way at an unexpected time. You weren't going, you know what, today's the day I think I'm going to accept Jesus. Today's the day I'm going to begin my personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Today's the day that I'm going to be sanctified holy. That's not what we did. We were doing our own everyday, regular stuff, and then God interrupts and says, nope, here's what I want you to do instead. You hadn't planned on beginning this relationship with Jesus on the day that you began this relationship with Jesus. More than likely. Maybe you went to a revival and you're like, I'm starting it today. I'm getting rededicating. That's rededicating. You see, there's still a difference there. You get what I'm saying? But my guess is we've all had that experience. A random word mentioned to a stranger or to someone in church that we sit across from, or you ran into someone that said something that you absolutely needed to hear in that moment, or maybe even you decided to show up on a Sunday morning when you really, really wanted to sleep in, and God met with you and said, here's what I want you to be and do. In these unexpected ways, God still speaks and makes himself present and known into our lives. He absolutely still does this today. He meets us in unexpected ways. He doesn't wait for us to express our need for him, because we may never do that. He kind of comes in and presents himself to us, and we recognize this need for him. He makes appointments with us, and then he keeps them. And we never even know that any of this is going on. We're just kind of like, oh, I just thought I was doing my own thing. And he's like, no, you thought that. But no, I had this scheduled for quite a while. We just need to open our eyes and then recognize those moments where he's trying to meet with us. Because he absolutely does. He absolutely still does. And if there's any doubt in your mind that God desires to meet with you, you're like, I don't think so. That's a bunch of bullwash. Can you say bullwash? I can say bullwash. I like it when the kids aren't here. I can say what I want to say. That's not true. Sometimes I say what I want to say anyway. If you had any doubt in your mind that God wants to meet with you, God desires to meet with you, he wants to be present in your life, then it has to disappear when we think about Jesus as Emmanuel, God with us. If he didn't want to be with us, he wouldn't be Emmanuel. If he didn't want to be with us, he wouldn't have been with us. God could have done what he wanted to do from way up there and been distant, but that's not who he is. That's not how he loves us. That's not how he wants to relate to us. And so he says, I'm going to be with them. And that's why we have Jesus. Wants to be with us. And so it was no accident. It is no chance meeting. It is no serendipitous moment that Jesus and this woman are at this particular well in Samaria at this particular time. John tells us that Jesus had to pass through Samaria, which we know it wasn't because he was in a hurry. It wasn't because he was taking a shortcut. It wasn't because he was a day late and he had to get there a lot faster. It was because he had a divine appointment right here to keep with this woman. Same thing with us. He has to meet with us. He has to come this way. A divine appointment with a woman who did not know who Jesus was, but he knew everything about her, which is exactly how we come to Jesus. We have no idea who he really is until we meet with him. Verses 16 and 18. Jesus said to her, go, call your husband and come here. The woman answered him, I have no husband. And Jesus said to her, you are right in saying, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true. And so this has got to be the most awkward conversation that this woman has ever had in her entire life. She shows up at noon in the heat of the day so that she doesn't run into anybody. Her intention is to come here and be like, I don't want to have to deal with other people today. Like, you get that, right? I don't want to deal with anybody today. Just not today. Right? Okay. I'm not the only one. She shows up at noon, heat of the day, doesn't want anybody to deal with anybody, and there's a Jewish rabbi who's there, which is not good. He should not be here. This is not going to bode well at all. And then he starts to talk to her, which is even worse than him just being there. And she begins to kind of have this banter back and forth about religion, and he responds back talking about special kinds of water, and it's all just kind of, really just kind of out there, and it has to be an awkward conversation for her. And then he says something that she probably dreaded. Like, you could probably see the countenance on her face drop when he asks her this question. The thing that had her out there at this time of day is the very thing that he brings up. Say, why don't you go back and get your husband? And of course, she doesn't have one. All she has is a past. All she has is something she wished he didn't know. All she has is something that a Jewish rabbi shouldn't know. He should have no idea about any of the stuff that's going on in her life. All he should know is here's coming up here, woman at the well at a weird hour, getting some water. That's all he should know. But this Jewish rabbi seems to know so much more than what he should, which I think gives us a little more insight into being known. Being known by God is invasive. It gets into all the little nooks and crannies that we want to keep hidden. Gets into all the little places we want to hide. You've ever heard the talk about, like, hey, my heart cries home, and we think about our lives and with regards to being a house. And there are rooms we shut off, closets. When people come over, there's rooms you shut. You don't let anybody in, right? Right. We're just going to close that door. That's the junk room. We've graduated from a junk drawer to a junk room. We're just going to close that. Don't open that at all. You got kids, you close that room. We're not opening that room at all. Pretty much just the living room. The hallway. You could, right here in the hallway. We can hang out right here. I got a folding chair. But God comes in and kind of pokes around at everything. Looks in all the little doors. Pulls the little drawers. invasive. Being known by God is invasive. Now, well, hold on. You want to go, invasion of privacy, that's a little weird. Like, hold on, we're going to get to all that in just a minute. Hang there, I promise you. But the word to know is a really vivid word. It's a really useful word in the Hebrew language. It has a wide array of meanings. It can be used from everything to describe the intimate relationship between a husband and a wife, or it can mean just simple awareness of someone or something. Wide, and everything in between. The context of how it's used is what's really important. And so here in Psalms and in John, it refers to this intimate and exhaustive knowledge that God has of people. Intimate and exhausted, complete, entire, invasive. He knows it all, deep down to all of it. And certainly there are people who, as David says, know when you sit and when you rise. There are people in your house, they know when you get up. They know when you go to bed. Your employer knows when you got up. When you show up late, he knows you didn't get up in time. Like there are people who know when you get up, when you rise, and when you go to bed. There are people in your life who know your deepest, darkest secrets, as is in the case of the Samaritan woman. There had to have been people that knew, certainly at least the 4 or 5 other guys. There are people who knew her deepest, darkest secrets. And there are people who know you like that, who know you, all of those things about you. However, God goes one step farther. He doesn't just know about all these things that you do. He knows why you do them. And he knows what you're thinking as you do it. You see, that's this invasive knowledge that way. You can't hide something from him. He's not making educated guesses based on typical human behavior, like, 9 out of 10 humans do this, so my guess is this is why you've done this. Like we do that. I do that a lot. If you've had conversations with me, chances are, let's play the percentages out. What's more likely? My kids probably hate it. What's more likely in this scenario? That this happened, or that this happened? I won't use any examples. I want to, but I won't. And so this is the doctrine of omniscience, that God just knows things, that nothing can be hidden from him. You can't sweep it under the rug, close the door, lock the drawer. You cannot keep it from his sight. And this applies to each and every one of us. All that can be known about you, God already knows. All that can be known about you, God already knows. Now, maybe you're one of those people who doesn't believe that God fully knows you or still thinks that you can keep stuff hidden from God. Like you're still thinking, well, I'm still pretty sure. But that has never worked throughout the history of the Bible. Go show me a book. Show me a character. Show me a story. Show me an account where somebody hid something for God and it worked out. It's in the book. God knew about it. You can't. After Adam and Eve sinned, what did they do? Anybody remember? They hid, right? They hid. God created everything around them. Where did they think they were going to hide? How silly is that to think they're going to hide? It would be no different for me trying to lay behind this bush and go, you can't see me? You absolutely can see me. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to get back up. Somebody's going to have to help me. It's embarrassing for me. But it's absolutely silly to think that they were going to hide from God, walking around. Knew them and walked with them and spent time with them. We cannot read these stories and find them at least slightly amusing. That they think they were going to hide from God. It is impossible because he always seems to find exactly who it is he's looking for. Always does. Your entire Bible is God finding exactly who he was looking for. But that doesn't keep us from trying to do the same thing. From trying to hide. From trying to keep stuff kind of off to the side. Let's lock it away so no one finds it. Don't we all believe at times that don't we all believe and live like God won't figure out what we do in secret? How often do we do that? Nobody will know this. How often do we think that? Or that God's not going to figure out what's actually in our heads when we do something, or what's actually in our hearts when we do something? That we didn't actually mean it, we're just doing it so to save face for ourselves. We're not doing it because we actually like the other person. We're doing it so that we're not embarrassed and kind of save face. Like, don't you think he knows all of those things already? Here's what I think it's like. Have you ever played hide and seek with a kid? Right? No one's ever played hide and seek with a kid. Okay. Some people play hide and seek with a kid. You play hide and seek with a kid, they put their hands over their eyes like this, right? And they think, because they can't see you, that you can't see them. Like you can ask, where's such and such? And then it's excited because they think they've hidden and they think that they've just kind of unexpectedly revealed themselves to you. But what a great example of what we do. We cover our own eyes. We cover stuff that we don't think we want to find about it. And then we think we've hidden ourselves from God. We're toddlers. we're infants in the way we relate to God, still thinking we can do this and hide something from him. And he doesn't already know it. At some point, we have to graduate beyond that. Being known by God is inevitable and it is invasive. There is nothing and no one that isn't known by him. We can try to hide. We can try to convince ourselves that we have hidden it, that we're hidden. We can try and fool ourselves into, hey, no one knows about this, and no one's found out. But he absolutely already knew. He knew you were trying to hide it. Jesus knew this woman's story. He knew every detail, and he knows yours and mine too. Every detail of our lives. Yep, even that one. Every detail of our lives. One might think that this invasive knowledge would be disturbing. Here's where we're going to come back around from earlier. That this would be disturbing, but and it's natural and normal to think that. But for this woman, she finds it comforting. We'll see in a minute. She finds it comforting. She doesn't run away from it. She doesn't shirk from what God is doing, from what Jesus is doing in her life. She embraces it. And the idea is that even though God knows us fully, he still loves us completely. Like there are people that I know, some things that they do, and it's harder to like them, right? Because we're rotten people. We can be. The heart wicked above all deceit, who can know it, But God knows all of those things about us and loves us still. Not a little bit, not like, I have to, but absolutely, completely, 100%. Love for you has not diminished in the slightest bit, even though he knows everything about you, even though he knows all the stuff you're trying to hide from. Still loves you completely. So hiding is unnecessary, and really it's a waste of your time, and it makes you look silly. And it's time to grow up. There's nothing you have done or can do that he doesn't already know about or that keeps him from loving you. And that's exactly what this woman learned and is feeling in this moment. This man has just called out the stuff that she thought people didn't know about her life. He has called out the stuff that she wished people didn't know about her life. Her most shameful moments. And then look what she does next, verses 28 and 29. So the woman left her water jar and went away into the town and said to the people, "Come see a man who told me all that I did, all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" Drop the water dish. Runs into town. Not the other way. Runs into town and says, "Come see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" She doesn't hide from the fact that Jesus knew everything about her. In fact, she does the exact opposite. She runs back to the crowd. She runs back to the people, excited about what's going on, to tell them everything that had just happened about a man who knew everything that she'd ever done. She celebrates what God has revealed in her life. She celebrates that he knows him deeply. Now, if I were in this town, and I don't think I'm alone here, you don't raise your hands, but if I were in this town and someone came to me and said, "Come and see a man who told me everything that I ever did," I'm pretty sure I'd go the other way. I'm not interested in that. I don't want some things getting out. Right? I won't make you side with me on that, but I'm sure I'm not the only one. But for some reason, this woman doesn't have that experience. That's not what she does. This is not embarrassment for her. This is freedom from her, recognizing that God knows her and has known her. Being known by God isn't embarrassing. It's freeing, liberating. It changes us when we're known by him. I don't know if it was something Jesus said. John, he may have said more than what John recorded. I don't know if it was just a general look in his eyes, but whatever it was, after this brief encounter that she has with him where she argues about religion, Jesus reveals not only who she was, but who he is. He says, "Here's who I am." And it was not long after that she runs away, not embarrassed, but set free because of the knowledge of who she is and who he is. What Jesus knew about this woman reshaped what she thought about herself. Let what Jesus knows about you reshape what you believe about yourself. We all have these divine encounters with God. We can have one today, regardless of how long you've been a Christian. You can have this divine encounter today for him to reveal something to you and begin to reshape who you think you are. That's just the way God works. So we don't have to be embarrassed that he knows everything about us. We can live free and unburdened, not proud of our pasts, but overwhelmed by the grace that we've received through his knowledge of us. Because God loves us, we do not have to be afraid of being known by him. We can embrace it. We can welcome it. Because he's not trying to hurt us. When he reveals his secrets to us, like when we reveal secrets to other people, not always, you're good people, but other people outside of here. They reveal them, so they want your secrets so they can blackmail you, right? They can hold it against you, right? We're always looking for a leg up. We're always looking for how we can take advantage of someone else. But God is not doing that when he's revealing our secrets. It's not so that, hey, I know this about you, you better straighten up. That's not the way God is. God says, I know this about you. And you know what? I don't care. I've forgiven it. I want you to move past it, just like that. That's what he wants. That's what he's trying to do. We don't have to fear being deeply and intimately known by God. That's the heart of what our spring prayer emphasis is. This idea of search me, know me, try me. Through this prayer, we're seeking God's assessment of us. Not what someone else says, not even what we see in ourselves. But we want God to, hey, God, what is your assessment of me? When you see me, what do you see? That's what the heart of this prayer is. Search me, know me, try me. Worship team, you can come up. It is through being known that God shapes our identity. It is through him knowing us that he shapes us into who he wants us to be. Because he's the only one who really knows us. He's the only one who really knows who we truly are, who we're really supposed to be. He's the only one that does really get to lean in and speak into who we are and who we're supposed to be. Ultimately, this search me prayer that we pray isn't just about being known, it's about being changed. It's about recognizing who God says we are, realizing who we're not, and then becoming who it is he says you're supposed to be. It's how the woman is able to admit and confess all that she's done to everyone else. Come back and see a man who knows everything I've ever done. And it's how David exclaims in Psalm 31, how precious to me are your thoughts, O God. God knows him deeply, intimately, all the failures, all the faults, all the stupid things he's done, all the good things. And David says, how precious to me are your thoughts, because they relish being known by God. And so here's the statement, here's the I am statement that I want you to make, and I want you to really understand it. I want you to just repeat it because I put it on a thing. But I am known by God. In spite of anything else that ever happens in your life, it will be miserable. This one we can bank on. I am known by God. He has never forgotten. He has never left you. He has never set you out on your own and said, I hope they make it and figure it out this time. He has always said, you are mine. He has always known us deeply and intimately. So we're gonna take communion in here in a minute. And as we do communion today, we're going to do it a little bit differently. You didn't get it on the way in. I had it up front because we're going to worship first. I'm going to pray. We're going to worship a little bit, and I want you to come and get communion as a type of response, as the aftermath of a conversation that you have with God in this moment. They'll sing. They'll lead. We'll sing the verse 1, verse 2, the chorus of a song, and then I'll get up and we'll take communion together. But I want you to spend the first verse or so praying this prayer. Search me, know me, try me. Spend that moment being known by God. Letting him see not just what's on the stage, but what's behind the curtain. What's hidden underneath. What's in the darkness. Let him know all of those things. Because he actually already does. But you confess it. You let him in on it. And when you're ready, come and grab the elements and stand or sit or kneel, wherever you want to go. And then we'll come back together and receive it. Lord, we just come to your presence. Lord, we're grateful for who you are. We're grateful for the way that you love us. God, we're grateful that we don't move through life alone. Lord, we're grateful for the repeated passages where we see and we get this sense, and you just say it explicitly, just outright, that you absolutely know everything about us and you absolutely love us with the deepest kind of love. Lord, it is one thing that we can know you, but it is a whole nother thing that we are known by you. That you have taken time to know me. Lord, I didn't create anything that you didn't already create. Lord, I didn't have a thought that you didn't already have first. Lord, when I look around the world and see others, Lord, I am as unoriginal and as everyday and commonplace as everyone else. But you, God, the one who did create all things, looks at me and says, no, no, no. That's an original. That's a masterpiece. That's a piece of work. That's intentional. That's on purpose. And I know you in ways you don't even yet know and believe in yourself. So God, that's what we want. Lord, we can get so weighed down and burdened by what the rest of the world and what other people say we should and shouldn't be. But Lord, we want to see us the way that you see us. So Lord, that's the heart of our prayer. Search me, know me, try me. Lord, you assess who I am. Lord, you show me where I've faltered and failed. Lord, you show me where I don't live up to the way that you've called me to live. You show me where I sabotage my own life. Thinking I'm doing what's important, and all the while completely ignoring the one who knows all things and what he would speak into me. And so, Lord, if you've known every moment, then you know this moment. And you know this is a moment for us to come and lay ourselves bare in front of you. Lord, lead us to confession of who we are. Lord, so that you can redeem us and unburden us and set us free. Lord, there's no meeting with you that is on accident, that is impromptu. It has been designated and on the calendar. And so, Lord, help us to sit down in this meeting with you and hear from you in this moment.
The
approach this moment, not just as a ritual that we go through, not just as we're supposed to do it every couple of months on the calendar, but you've approached this moment representing this relationship that God has always wanted to have with you. From the beginning of time, this was the plan. His life poured out for you. He knew it all. And yet, this is still what he decided to do for you. So on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he came with the disciples and he broke the bread. He said, "This is my body broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." It says, in the same manner, he took the cup. He said, "This is my blood, which is poured out for you. Take this, and as often as you do, remember me." Lord, we come to you in this moment, celebrating this moment of communion, celebrating this moment of where we come into this. We recognize what you have done, this price that you have paid for us, this laying down of your own life so that we could be forgiven, this laying down of your own life so that we could have a relationship. Lord, it was always the plan for us. Lord, I have always been someone who you wanted to redeem. While I was yet a sinner, while I was as far away as I could be, you still wanted to redeem me. You have known me for all time. And so, Lord, I celebrate this morning being known by you. Celebrate this morning the inevitableness of our relationship, of you coming, me meeting you. The invasiveness of how you come into my life and into the nooks and crannies and constantly pour your Spirit to change me and grow me and mature me into this Christ-like character. Lord, you have always known me. You have always loved me. So, Lord, I celebrate and I worship that today I am known. So when the accuser tries to say to you all these things that you are, I want you to repeat these I ams that we've done this past couple of weeks. I am known by God. Let it set the direction and the course of your life. You're going to be really tempted to listen to all of the other mess that comes around you. but it is not who you really are. This is a small bit of who you really are. Let this be your proclamation, people. As the people of God, this should be how we see ourselves. Beginning how we see ourselves. The other way I want you to see yourselves is here on Wednesday night to listen to the Woodleys. It'll be a good time. It'll be a great celebration to hear what they're doing across the world, the impact that they're having. I've heard, I think, a piece of it, and it'll be really good. I encourage you to be here. Whatever you're doing Wednesday night, you cancel it. If they won't cancel it, you give them my number, and I'll cancel it for you. I'll do my best. I cannot promise, but I will try. But really, 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 be here on Wednesday night so we can hear from the Woodleys and celebrate what they're doing across the world and what God is doing through them. So have a great week, BNC family. See you Wednesday, and then next Sunday, on-site, online, 10 a.m.